Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow dregs of society. Welcome, rock dwellers. Welcome, all you hateful people who celebrate the president. Welcome, all you Trump voters who are racist, or all you Trump voters that are racist, thanks to Beto O'Rourke. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. And joining me today as my co-host is the patriot from the battle-born state, the silver state of Nevada. That's my good friend Sharron Engel. Sharron, welcome back to Conservative Commandos.
Thank you, Rick. It's always great to be here.
Sharron, you know, they're calling us so many names. Pretty soon it's going to take the first segment of the show to go through all the titles, accusations, innuendos these people make about us. But I love to say them every day because I want our side to realize that side really hate us. They really do hate us. They're out to destroy us. And in doing so, they're out to take away all our freedoms. As much as Ronald Reagan says we're one generation away from losing our freedoms, I do believe we are one election away from losing our freedoms. And that is why we must be forever vigilant. That includes voting integrity, Sharron Engel.
Absolutely. Well, you know, that's a hot button issue with me.
I do indeed.
I've come up close and personal with that on several elections of my own. And we know that many elections are won or lost by a very small percentage of the vote, and sometimes by a very small fraction of the number of voters that actually turn out. And in Georgia, I have to just say kudos to you, Georgia voters, for standing up for hand-marked paper ballots and challenging this new election system in the state. The officials want to implement, but for the 2020 election, the new touchscreen machines. Well, those touchscreen machines are absolutely vulnerable. They are a computer, can be hacked. There are numbers of people who are experts in that field who have said there are numerous ways to do it. In fact, there were a couple of grad students from Princeton, this has been not too long ago, who went in and were able to hack voting machines, change the votes in a matter of seconds, 10 seconds. So it's just ludicrous not to have a good system where you can actually check the ballot. The one that was actually cast, and that's what this idea of paper ballots, hand marked, and that can be color in the circle where you can count them electronically if you like, where it picks up the circles, but where you actually have the ballot intact, where someone, eyes on the process, human hands can touch each one of those ballots, can actually count them, and can see the mark on the ballot. It's not dependent upon some machine that could be hacked or the outcome changed in order to manipulate elections. And I say just stand fast there. You Georgia voters, you are on the right track. You are on the way to keeping your elections fair and honest. And that's exactly what Americans should be asking for all over the country, is paper ballots.
I agree. You know, maybe we should get our friend Dr. Paul Brown on as a guest to talk about that decision in Georgia. Yeah, Sharron, and you know, another thing that I love to see them eat themselves. And here we've got another dust up. We have another dust up on the liberal side. You know, we've been seeing dust ups between AOC and Nancy Pelosi, and you know, there's like 25 of them running for president, and it's always fun to watch them go to war with each other. And now, my God, there's somebody from the left that you and I actually might agree with. What's going on, Sharron Engel?
Well, you know, Rashida Tlaib And Ilan Omar were going to go to Israel, and Israel was going to allow them to come in as a courtesy because of their office. They said, we respect the office, but absolutely anybody who goes along with this boycott, this BDS boycott, is not allowed in our country. That's our policy. But because you are congresswomen, we'll allow you to come in with a few stipulations. And Trump said, don't do it. Don't break your policy for these guys. Don't think that you have to be courteous to them in order to keep me in your good graces or in order to keep the American people on the side of Israel. Do what you need to do for your own security. So they withdrew. They said, fine, we don't want these ladies here. It's going to cause us multiple security problems. Don't come. You can't come. We're going to keep our policy. Well, interestingly, on that side, on those networks that we know are absolutely sold out to the left, Bill Maher comes up and he rails against the BDS, Palestinians, and Omar Tlaib with an all-white panel featuring no Palestinians, no Arabs, no Muslims, and no people of color. This liberal, Bill Maher, he's just lambasted these women, and Rashida Tlaib says, well, that's it. That tears it. We need a boycott, Bill Maher. So now they're into it, you know. Bill Maher is saying this BDS stuff is a BS purity test, and Tlaib is calling him a racist. So here we go on the left fighting it out. But, you know, I couldn't agree more on this particular issue with Bill Maher.
All right, and I agree. And by the way, as members of Congress, you know, we could talk about, was that the right decision for Israel not to let them in? I would have let them in, but there would have been one stipulation: no media. For instance, Tlaib has a grandmother or somebody who's in the West Bank. Well, let her visit, but no media. Let her visit her grandmother's house. No media. She wouldn't have went. Hey, Sharron, we do need to take a break, and then on the other side talk about our guests. Also, Sharron Engel, I know you've run for Senate. I know you run for Congress. You held office in the Nevada State Legislature. I have a question for you that I'm going to ask you on the other side about how a candidate should act on social media. But you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show. It is a program that's brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. Don't go away. Sharron and I will be right back.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Ready to go with guests?
I am.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Engel. And Sharron, as always, the hallmark of our show is terrific guests. And we've had 3 of them joining us once again today.
We do. Our first guest is Terry Jeffrey, who is the editor-in-chief of CNSnews.com. And prior to that, he served for more than a decade as the editor of Human Events, where he is now an editor-at-large. And from 1987 to 91, he was the editorial writer for the Washington Times, which entered his investigative editorials on Jim Wright for consideration for a Pulitzer Prize. We've asked him to come on and talk about an article that he's written about China and their high-tech tyranny. We've always known that communism was tyrannical, but now we have evidence coming right out of our own State Department. Mm-hmm. And Terry has that to discuss with us. Our next guest is a friend of ours who has been on the show before. His name is Eric Rittmeyer. He's a former U.S. Marine and an expert in the field of mental toughness and emotional intelligence. He speaks to audiences all over the country, teaching executives and sales professionals how to overcome the limits brought on by fear, emotions, and replace them with clear, concise, critical thinking that gets results. What a concept critical thinking is. We've asked him to come on and talk to us about the mass murders that have taken place in El Paso and Dayton, and if there are any correlations between those two. He's going to really analyze this for us and give us a good breakdown on these crimes. Mm-hmm. Our final guest is Elad Hakim, who is a political writer, commentator, and attorney. His articles have been published in the Washington Examiner, the Daily Caller, the Federalist, the Allgemeiner, the Western Journal, American Thinker, and other online publications. He's now written 2 articles that we want to discuss with him. The first one has to do with the requests about McGahn for the Mueller grand jury and how the Dems are losing that. It's grasping at straws, and we're going to find out what the problem is there, why they can't let this go. And then finally, we've asked him to talk a bit more about the red flag laws. So we're excited to have all 3 of our guests on today. I know it's going to be an exciting show.
It always is. Well, Sharron, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Dealing with a candidate, and I don't know that I should use the name of the candidate legally, and also I don't want to mention the name of the candidate because I don't want to draw attention to him personally, but I just want to use him as an example of candidates. Sharron, I know you've run for Senate, you've run for the House of Representatives, you served in the legislature of Nevada, and you and I have talked about how candidates have reacted on social media. Certainly we've discussed how President Trump has acted on media, but there's a candidate who's running for Congress, And this individual is a Facebook friend of mine, so I get to see what he puts out on Facebook. And this individual wrote this. He starts this comment with the F word. I won't use it. You know what that word is. F word. And I need like 40% of these folks to vote for me. I have nothing against pot. Well, hell, most probably don't vote. Okay? So again, he starts out this comment, and he was referring to the people that were the Antifa protesters. And he, as I said, he started out his comment on Facebook with the F word. And I comment back. And I'm going to call this person Ed. That is not his name, but I'm just going to use the name Ed. As I say, I don't want to identify him because I don't want to give him any more publicity than what he gets for himself. I write, Ed, I'm very disappointed by your language, the language you choose to use. Very unbecoming of someone who wants to be a leader of our country. I would expect that from the left. Save the F word for the bedroom or the locker room. And Sharron Engel, you know, we've talked about candidates using social media. I think that anybody who's going to run for Congress, number one, they should delete their social media and stay off it, because anything that they can use can be used against them. Well, this person that I'm calling Ed wrote back, Rick Trader, I 100% disagree. I use the language I use. I'm a very well-spoken young man. That's how I enhance my sentences. Add the appropriate amounts of humor, intensity, decency. Your lack of swearing is your choice. Yes, it is my choice. But as I said, I think that we've had enough foul language in society. People, especially our young people, don't need to hear this. Sharron, once again, am I thinking too far outside the box?
Rick, on my website, SharronEngel.com, I also put on there that I do consulting for politicians, and I am fairly careful about who I choose to consult with, on a number of grounds. First of all, there may be a climate right now to be using indecent language, and it may be tolerated. However, in the overall scheme of things, it's like my mother said, there's lots of women, but not every woman is a lady. Well, it's the same thing. There's a lot of men, but not every man is a gentleman. And yet, I don't think that anyone will ever take issue with a lady or a gentleman. And so whenever you can, you should put your best face forward. You should be a lady or a gentleman. You should pay attention to what offends people, and don't be deliberately offensive to anyone. And he was deliberately offensive to you and then said, no, that's your problem, not mine. Which that doesn't really make friends or get votes, actually, when you tell someone in your voting public that they've got the problem, not you. So, you know, try to be as conciliatory as possible on the things that don't really matter. I mean, those kinds of things are not in the overall scheme of things when we start talking about issues. You want to keep to the issues. Don't get off in the tall weeds talking about stuff like your preference for word usage. That's really a tall weed thing. And now we've got polarization over something that isn't even an issue. So stay away from it. That would be my best advice, is don't get into the tall weeds if you can help it. And especially on silly things like that. The second thing, beyond being just courteous and choosing your battles, which is the 2 points that I made with that. The third thing is that when you're using social media, understand that every word you say can and will be used against you, and it will be used out of context, and you will spend too much time trying to defend what you've put out there rather than talking about the issues. So rather than not being on social media at all, be very conservative about what you do post. Be very careful about what you say about those posts. And be careful that when you use those very few words, that no matter what text they are put in or how many of those words are parsed, you're not going to have to defend any of them. Right. So, always the concept, please guard my mouth, make my words sweet, because I may have to eat them. Yeah. It always comes back to bite you.
Well, this conversation continued, and I wrote back, Ed, I criticize you for your choice of using the F word. My contribution to your campaign is that advice, because earlier, and I'm not reading this whole thing, I'm reading it slightly out of context, but he was saying you've not donated to my campaign or anything, you've not forwarded any of my tweets, you've not forwarded any of my comments or whatever. And I wrote back, Ed, I criticize you for using the F word. My contribution to your campaign was that advice. The morals of our country have gone downhill since it has become popular to use foul language in public. And he wrote back again, and he says, Rick Trader, didn't ask for your advice. Again, mentioned that you have not once shared a post of mine, liked a post of mine, commented with support on a post of mine, nor have you made a financial contribution to me in my effort to unseat a 24-year Democrat incumbent. If you want to offer criticism, it would be more meaningful coming from someone who invests in lifting me up. All the best. I will continue to be myself. Love the supportive comments on the thread. To which I wrote back, wow. After this, not very likely that I'll support you. I probably will discuss politicians who think it is okay to use foul language on their Facebook and Twitter posts. And since you have no interest in what people think unless they contribute to your campaign, I will see what others think about this thread. So Sharron, here we have a guy who doesn't care about what you think unless you help him out or contribute to his campaign. And Sharron, I think we've seen time and time again politicians who will not listen to you unless you contribute their campaign, make backroom deals and whatever. And Ed, we've had enough guys like that, guys and women representing us in Washington. And Sharron, I'll give you the last word on this little dust-up that I have with Ed, whose real name I'm not using.
Well, we discussed three things that I would say in consulting with Ed. The fourth thing is, don't be so short-sighted. Just because you're not a supporter yet doesn't mean you won't be a supporter in the future. And the fifth thing is, never deliberately get yourself in a match that you can't win, especially with somebody in the media. They've got a bigger audience.
There was an old saying. This was before social media and whatever. Never get into an argument with anyone who buys ink by the barrel. Remember that one when everything was newspapers?
And paper by the ream.
Anyway. And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host is Sharron Engel. Don't go away. On the other side, we'll be back with Terry Jeffrey as guest. He's the editor of cnsnews.com. We'll be right back. Thank you, Sharron.
Oh, that was fun. Thanks for asking me. Those were good questions.
Well, it cracks me up. These people who they don't want any, they don't want to hear from you unless you contribute to their campaign.
Well, and that's his campaign manager talking. He's saying, just blow that off.
Oh, he doesn't have a campaign manager. This guy don't even have a website.
Too bad. He's in big trouble already then.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. And once again, for rebroadcast of our shows, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. Also, like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And with that, Sharron Engel, our first guest of the day, is with us. The honor of the introduction is all yours.
It is an honor and a privilege to introduce Terry Jeffrey, who is the editor-in-chief of CNSnews.com. Prior to that, he served for more than a decade as editor of Human Events, where he is now an editor-at-large. From 1987 to 91, he was the editorial writer for the Washington Times, which entered his investigative editorials about the then House Speaker Jim Wright for consideration for a Pulitzer Prize. In 1992, he served as Issues and Research Director for Pat Buchanan's first Republican presidential campaign. In 1995 and 96, he was National Campaign Manager for Pat Buchanan's second Republican presidential campaign. Buchanan that year won Alaska, Louisiana, and the Missouri caucuses, placed second in the Iowa caucus, and won the New Hampshire primary. Terry, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thanks for having me, Sharon.
Well, it's our pleasure, and you've written an interesting article, China's High-Tech Tyranny. This is about human rights, so we've always been a little skeptical of the Chinese and how much freedom reigns there, but you've really nailed down, I think, what is wrong with communist China. Could you kind of tell us what the tyranny looks like there?
Yeah, quite frankly, the two sources for my column were the State Department Country Report on Human Rights in China in the State Department Country Report on Religious Freedom in China. They're excellent reports. And I sat down and read the latest ones, which are for the 2018 calendar year last week, and it was really shocking. I mean, if you've been following China in recent history, unfortunately, it's not shocking, but it ought to be shocking that as the State Department documents, the Chinese are creating what they call a social credit score for all of their people. And that social credit score is based on this pervasive surveillance they have of literally everybody in China using every high-tech means at their reach, including how people use the internet, to what they see from surveillance cameras when people are walking down the street. The State Department, for example, says that the Chinese have deployed tens of millions of surveillance cameras around the country that have both facial recognition and gait recognition software, so they can pick out somebody in a crowd if they want to. They can tell where someone's went. Well, they don't only put those cameras, by the way, in public areas. They put them in churches and they put them in monasteries. So if you go to a Christian church or you go into a Uyghur Muslim temple in China, they're going to have you on camera and know you were there. And that goes to part of how the Chinese government evaluates whether or not you're loyal to it.
Wow. Well, we know about all of this kind of surveillance, and I think we've been resistant here in America. I know several times in the legislature when I was serving there, they would come in and want us to put surveillance cameras at stoplights. And we resisted that, but it seems like it's really very pervasive. And I know now people put a little tape across their video camera on their computer because they're nervous about someone surveilling them through their computer. And yet this is exactly what you're talking about in China, isn't it?
On a massive scale. It's interesting to put it in perspective. We get mad at America now because they have these cameras on the top of the traffic lights, like you say. And if you run a red light, they get you on a camera and they send you a ticket in the mail for X amount of money. And we are increasingly putting up surveillance cameras in the United States, theoretically for public safety. But in China, there's no doubt, according to what the State Department reports, that these cameras are meant to intimidate people. And the people in China know that when they go online and they're communicating through social media in China, that the Chinese government is not only monitoring what they say, but who they communicate with. And that literally goes to put together part of what they call their social credit score. And if your social credit score falls below a certain level, you're not allowed to buy property in China, you're not allowed to travel. So, for example, last year, according to the State Department, 11 million people were barred from getting on flights in China because of their social credit score. 4 million times people were stopped from getting on a bus because of the social credit score the Chinese government had given them because of this incredibly pervasive surveillance they put on electronic communications, and that they put on everything from streets to churches in China.
Now, China has quite a large population, larger than the United States, and we're at 300 million, aren't we? Where does China fall in all of that?
I don't know their exact number. They are the most populous nation on earth. I believe they have more than 1 billion people. So it's a huge number of people that they're trying to put under surveillance. And as the State Department points out, part of this system is designed to intimidate people and have them self-police. Because people are aware of this, and they know they had a friend who tried to get on a plane and they couldn't do it because of their social credit score, then they're going to watch very carefully what they say online, what they say in an email, what they put in a fax, what they say in a text message. It's really Orwellian. And like I said, it includes having cameras in churches. So if you're a Christian and you go to church on Sunday, the Chinese government knows that you were there, and they don't like the fact that you're there. So and this is, like I said, this is from the State Department. That's the source for this.
It's mind-boggling. You would think, though, that there would be a lot of folks that would just go underground. They would have, you wouldn't go to church. So as you're saying, that's exactly what's happening. People are not going where these cameras are in order to avoid this.
Right. Well, in China, there's only a certain number of churches that are recognized. And historically, for example, they had the Catholic Patriotic Association, which was the officially recognized Catholic Church. And they had the underground Catholic Church that had bishops and even cardinals that were appointed by the Pope rather than by the Chinese government. Unfortunately, Pope Francis made a deal with the Chinese government last year to give the Chinese government a control over who becomes a Catholic bishop in China, and theoretically for the Catholic Church in China to become public, but to have that sort of control. So, I mean, it is truly Orwellian, the sort of control that the government of China today wants to have over its people, involving everything from what their religious beliefs are to what they say to their friends in a tweet.
Well, it just, like I said, it just kind of promotes this underground activity, and I guess I always want to bring it kind of home. We have the preppers and these folks that are moving off the grid precisely for these reasons. How does this relate? You said this is a massive scale compared to what we're experiencing here in the United States, but it's still, as you said, Orwellian, and there are people that say, wow, it's coming at us, and it's coming at us fast.
Well, I think it's a warning to Americans, and I say in my column that any instrument, including high-tech communications, any kind of high-tech device, is simply an instrument. It can be used for good or it can be used for evil. The same way a knife can be used for good or evil. A knife can be used to cut off a piece of meat to give to someone who's poor and starving, or the knife can be used to severely hurt someone. So this technology is no different. It can be used to advance freedom, or it can be used to inhibit freedom. I think the Chinese government clearly recognizes that, and as they've allowed technology to develop in China, they've wanted to keep control of it in a way where they can use it as an instrument to suppress the people, to deny their freedom, and to use it as an instrument of tyranny. And I think in the United States, we see both impulses. Clearly, technology, like your show, is something that can be used to advance freedom and to be a check on the government. At the same time, technology can be a check on the people. Sometimes the government can use technology in a way that's arguably okay, like putting those cameras on the traffic lights may in fact make it less likely that people will run red lights and endanger other people's lives. That's not a bad thing. But there are ways that even our government could use technology and might be tempted to want to use it, using things like domestic terrorism and so forth as an excuse. That would actually be an infringement on liberty in the United States. And I think we have to keep a careful eye on that and fight any efforts to use technology by the government to do that here in our country.
Well, I'm a Southern Baptist, and we have the International Mission Board that does a lot of traveling and supports churches in foreign countries, especially in countries like China, where you have this kind of tyranny, and they are always, encouraging people to travel in a kind of inauspicious way. Take Bibles in. A Bible is not technologically traceable. It's just a piece of literature. So do you find that that's happening, that there's an underground church movement because of this, and that we can see what we're seeing is a thriving church in China that the communist government probably doesn't know much about?
Well, I think that's no doubt the case, and it's been that way for a long time, where Christians in China have resisted the communist government there. They found ways to practice their faith, to evangelize their faith, and to stick by their faith. And I think that's a battle in China. There's no doubt about it that there is a conflict between people who want to have free exercise of religion and the communist government of China. If you want to be a member of the Communist Party in China, for example, you need to be an atheist. And it's very ironic. I said Pope Francis made a deal with the Chinese that the Chinese have a say in who's going to be a bishop in the Catholic Church. So you have a government run by atheists who are going to determine who are going to be bishops in the Catholic Church. Earlier this year, I interviewed Cardinal Zen, who used to be the Archbishop of Hong Kong. And he talked about how outrageous that is. But that clearly is a battle in China, and maybe the central one, between people of faith and a communist regime that wants to suppress them.
Well, we are talking with Terry Jeffrey, who is the editor-in-chief for CNSnews.com. We're talking about an article he wrote, China's High-Tech Tyranny, and we are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch us on the AUN TV network in Northern California. My co-host Rick Trader and I will be right back after these messages with our guest, Terry Jeffrey.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. I want to give a shout out to folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa and Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, Arlington, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and seen on the AUN television network on stations in places like San Francisco, Sacramento, San Jose, Silicon Valley, Wine Valley. Our guest this segment is Terry Jeffrey. He's the editor-in-chief of CNSnews.com. He's written a very interesting article, China's High-Tech Tyranny. Terry, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Terry, what ramifications does this have with what's going on in Hong Kong today?
Well, I think what's going on in Hong Kong is huge, and it could be a massive historical import. You know, obviously Hong Kong had the advantage of being part of the UK, not part of Communist China. When Communist China started up. And now the question is, obviously the people in Hong Kong want freedom, they appreciate freedom, they have a sense of freedom. And I think, you know, what I've understood from just reading press reports is the Chinese, because they control totally the media inside the People's Republic, and because they have such control over the technology inside the People's Republic, that they've been doing their best to try and propagandize what's going on in Hong Kong, so that spirit of liberty that's being expressed by the people going out onto the streets of Hong Kong doesn't spread to the mainland of China. But I think potentially that's what could happen, if not immediately, eventually. Because I think what the people of Hong Kong are doing are speaking for all the Chinese people. And they're standing up for freedom. And I know we don't want any kind of conflict with China, but I believe that Americans need to stand by the people of Hong Kong and support their desire and their demand for freedom.
Terry, do you think this technology is being used by the Chi-Coms, the communist Chinese, to surveil the people of Hong Kong, that if they ever do anything like a Tiananmen Square, then they can come in and find out who the troublemakers were, per se?
Well, it's pure hypothesis on my part because I don't know. But given what we do know, based on the State Department reports on human rights and religious freedom in China, it seems to me it would be reasonable to conclude that, yes, the Chinese government would be using technology to put surveillance on the people who've been involved in the protests in Hong Kong and to be able to identify them and to use that information for their own purposes. And definitely to try and find out who are the leaders and the main instigators and people that may be a threat to the communist regime. I think that's a very reasonable hypothesis.
Terry, in your article, what price, or you asked this question, what price does someone pay for getting a low score in the government rating system, as you described in the first section, which, Sharron, you mentioned not being able to get on air flights, not being able to get on trains, buses, and whatever. But do you know, or from these reports, have they talked about other type of ramifications that the Chinese have perpetrated on individuals because of this surveillance?
Well, those were the main ones in the report. But it's also true, as the State Department points out in his report, that China imprisons people for their political views. For example, the Uyghurs, who are Muslims, who live in the western part of China, are in massive numbers of them, perhaps as many as 2 million of them are imprisoned. But according to the State Department, the Chinese, the ones who aren't in prison, the Chinese have put tracking devices in their phones. And in Tibet, which in Tibet and in the places where you have Tibetan Buddhists in China, the Chinese have put surveillance cameras in their monasteries. They've also put surveillance cameras in Christian monasteries. So, the Chinese want people to know, the Chinese government wants people to know, you stray from their path, they are going to get you. And they, by putting as many as 2 million Uyghurs in jail, I think they've shown the sort of oppression they're willing to engage in.
Terry, it seems to me whenever any entity uses a tool for one purpose, they will use it for many purposes. In these reports, or maybe this is calling on you to speculate a little bit, but could the Chinese also be using these technologies to spy on the United States or citizens of the United States?
Well, I think that we'd want to worry about it. I mean, I think that, I don't know the answer to that, but and again, hypothetically, if I were the Chinese or any other nation that has an adversarial position with the United States, would I want to exploit U.S. communications technology to monitor people? And there is evidence that the Chinese do want to monitor and control Chinese who are outside the borders of the People's Republic. And so I think, there's evidence of that.
Terry, you and Sharron were also talking about, these technologies can also be used for good things. And you guys talked about some examples of that. Just about every day, it's hard to turn on the TV living near Philadelphia without seeing some news report of some criminal being on surveillance video. And the police asking people to help track them and whatever. I could also possibly see where technologies like this could be used in places like, let's say Portland, Oregon, where over this past weekends there was demonstrations and violence, people in the streets supposedly using their First Amendment rights, but not necessarily for good things. Should this technology be used more, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, should this technology be used more here in the United States? But then we got the counterpart of that is, like you said, what can be used for good can also be used for bad.
Yeah, I do think it's a double-edged sword, and I think that if you're a conservative, you need to believe in the Bill of Rights. And that means, among other things, you believe in free exercise of religion, which we discussed, but also freedom of speech. And, you know, I believe that people who profoundly disagree with me, even people who say things that I think are evil and ought to be morally censured, I think under the First Amendment, they have a right to say it. But, you know, to give you a concrete example, I can tell you from my own experience about the impact of modern communications technology. When I started out as a journalist at the Washington Times 3 decades ago, every day we had to print our editorial page out on this kind of plastic, and then we pasted it on a wax board, and then we put it under a camera, and then we ran it through this massive print machine that put it out on paper, and then we put it on trucks, and we drove it all around the Washington, D.C. area, and kids went out and threw it on people's lawns at 6:30 in the morning. And when I was editor of Human Events, we had to get that thing done by Thursday night because we had to have it to the printer very early on Friday morning so it could get printed and be put in the mail on Friday and in paper versions. Now, as the editor of CNS News, we're totally online. It's entirely electronic. There's no paper involved. We can publish a story and put it on Facebook and broadcast it out to a massive number of people very inexpensively and very efficiently. So I think, you know, in the United States of America, journalists who want to use freedom of speech to protect other freedoms against encroachment by government can use the same technology that communists in China are using to track their people and infringe on their freedom.
Terry Jeffrey, editor-in-chief of CNSnews.com. We want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. Terry, please tell our audience where they could read your articles, follow your work, and the work of CNSnews.com.
They can come to CNSnews.com online, or they can go to our Facebook page, CNSnews.com. So we appreciate they're taking a look at what we're doing.
And by the way, we have an RSS feed to CNSnews.com from our website, CCRShow.com. Terry Jeffrey, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you very much, Rick.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. My co-host today is Sharron Engel. I'm Rick Trader. On the other side, we're going to be talking about the mass shootings in El Paso and Dayton, Ohio, and how some are trying to use those instances to infringe upon our Second Amendment rights. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our next guest.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Once again, we want to thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Engel. And for rebroadcast, always check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You can find our radio show, our TV show there, and a lot of terrific articles, a lot of great information. And with that, Sharron, our next guest is with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Well, it's a true privilege to introduce Eric Rittmeyer, who is a former U.S. Marine. Thank you for your service. And is an expert in the field of mental toughness and emotional intelligence. He speaks to audiences all over the country, teaching executives and sales professionals how to overcome the limits brought on by fear and emotions and replace them with clear, concise, critical thinking that gets results. Eric, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Hey, Sharron, thanks for having me back. Good to see you guys.
It's a real privilege to have you here. And we want to talk to you about these mass shootings in El Paso and Dayton. And, always it's the gun's fault, always. According to the alphabet media, there is no other culprit. And yet, there seems to be some things that are just a common thread that runs through all of these mass shootings. So tell me what that common thread is besides what they feel is the gun.
Yeah, here's the major problem, Sharron. The issue is everybody wants to point to one direct thing and say, this is the problem. Unfortunately, they're pointing to gun control because gun control is the easy way from a political standpoint to say, this is my stance. I believe we should institute this law. And then the opposing side says, well, no, we don't agree with that. And then it's a way for them to say, oh, well, then you're for mass shootings. You want people to shoot people because you don't agree with this, which is absolutely silly. So the most important piece here is to understand that there is no one thing that's going to correct this problem. People have murdered people forever. People will continue to kill people no matter what. There's no way to stop it. That's the number one most important thing to point out. Number two, this is very obvious, but I think it needs to be said because unfortunately in the media, it doesn't get said. There's not one person that's directly responsible for this. So to point to one person based on their policies saying they're directly responsible for mass shootings is silly. It's crazy talk. It's nuts. It's just a way to try to get votes. So that's dangerous. What we're suffering from here is not just a gun violence epidemic, it's a hate epidemic. And our nation is just in hate mode. When you look at these situations, when you look at these mass shootings, there are some common threads. The number one thing, Dr. Warren Farrell, he actually wrote a great book called The Boy Crisis. And his book basically talks about dad deficits and how kids, especially boys, are growing up without fathers. And when you look at the statistics, 90% of mass shooters have grown up in a house that had a dad deficit, meaning they did not have a male role model. So can you say that's the number one reason that these people went up and committed mass murder? Obviously, you cannot. But if you're looking for common threads, that is the one common thread amongst 90% of male mass shooters.
Well, that brings me to my faith, I guess. In 1962, we threw God out of the schools. And from that point on, we've seen a real rise in not so great stuff and a deficit in the good things, especially the family. We see a real undermining of the family from that point on. So can you talk to me about that? Do you think that a lack of God, do you believe that those statistics are real, or is that just something that just happens to correlate?
Yeah, I don't believe that that's a big factor in this. Again, it's a contributing piece. Don't get me wrong. I mean, a lack of God in schools and the inability to represent your faith at work, at school, whatever. That's a problem. I agree with that. Being a top tier reason why, I don't agree. I don't think that it's directly linked to that. The father thing is the biggest piece of it. But again, it boils down to other things. When you look at, for me, I'm really big on looking at where are we now and where were we before these mass shootings really started to happen? So go back to our childhood. Let's look at what's different. People say, I always look for this link between divorce rates. And I say, okay, lack of family structure. Let's look at divorce rates. Divorce rates are actually, they've gone down. I mean, we're actually the lowest we've been since 1968, 2.9 divorces per 1,000 people. So there's not a direct link there. Now, we are still one of the top three highest nations for, one of the highest nations for divorces, but still, that's not a direct link. When you look at the father figure, that's a big thing. You look at the lack of families, another thing. And then social media and video games. And I catch a lot of slack for this. People say, oh, well, Eric, you can't say video games are responsible for this. I can tell you, with anybody that has even a partially functioning prefrontal cortex, you have to understand that sitting in front of a computer, playing games where you are desensitizing your brain to violence, to death, you can't tell me that doesn't have an impact. There was a study done by the University of California at Riverside back in 2010, and they basically found that by the time a child reaches the age of 18, they have witnessed over 200,000 acts of violence via social media, via television. 16,000 of those are murders. So again, you can't tell me in your right mind that's not a contributing factor to the problem where we are. On top of the fact you take mental illness, so lack of father role model, sitting in front of a computer, having it more about social media than social interaction, being desensitized to violence, that's the perfect storm for something bad.
Well, you mentioned frontal cortex, and we have had guests on our show that talk about how marijuana affects the frontal cortex of males under the age of 25. And, I live in a state where we have now legalized recreational marijuana for anyone over 21. So does drugs play a role in this? And are they legal? Are they prescription drugs? Are they these recreational drugs? Do they play a role?
From a drug standpoint, just across the board, I would say no, drugs do not play a point. Now, when you're talking about someone who has a mental illness, who has prescription medication that needs, they need to take it to remain stable, I would say it could at that point, because if somebody doesn't take their medication or if they use it incorrectly, yes. But no, I don't think drugs, let's look at it this way. No matter what somebody says, no matter what Donald Trump says, no matter what somebody else says, you're not going to turn into some deranged lunatic because Donald Trump says something you agree with. So these are people that have the ability to commit these crimes. Smoking marijuana doesn't turn them into a mass killer. Hearing Donald Trump talk about and say things that people don't agree with, or they might say, oh, yeah, I don't, open borders. I don't like open borders. Donald Trump doesn't like open borders. I'm going to go murder people. It doesn't happen that way. We don't turn into deranged lunatics. So to point the finger at what people are saying, to say, oh, you're directly linked to that. Well, let's call out AOC for the attacks on the ICE facilities. If that's the case, she's calling them concentration camps. How about the guy that tried to blow them up? He's out there talking about concentration camps. Are we going to blame AOC for him blowing up a concentration camp? No, we're not. That's silly. Just because she said something doesn't make it okay for a person to go try to commit mass murder. So that's a long answer to the question that I do not believe drugs play a role in that.
Okay. Well, I know that some of the early on shooters, I'm thinking Columbine and some of those around that era, were directly traceable to drugs, prescription drugs, such as Ritalin and others that were used for ADHD and ADD. Do we see any evidence of that in these more recent shootings?
Well, and I think it goes back to correlation doesn't equal causation. And, just because they had those drugs in their blood doesn't mean that was the factor that made them commit the crime or made them commit the murder. Again, there are multiple pieces that go into this. And from my standpoint, what I try to find is absolute factual data that links common things amongst every single one. And you just can't deny the fact that lack of father figure plays such a substantial role. You really can't. There's all these other contributing factors, but when you look at the lack of the male role model, in my mind, that is the number one thing. The issue and the reason why nobody wants to address it is because you can't politicize it. So it's easy to politicize gun control. You can't politicize lack of fatherhood because that requires everybody to say, this is a group effort. As males, we got to do better, but we can't politicize it and get votes out of it. That's why nobody wants to talk about it.
Well, and that leads me to the question. So is there a solution, or do we just watch this stuff happen over and over again?
Again, there are lots of things we need to do. I catch a lot of heat for this. We talk about the red flag laws. A lot of people are very, they're very pro 2A, and I get that. I mean, I'm down with that, but I believe the red flag laws are something that does need to be instituted. I think there has to be some very serious thought put into it. I don't think it should be a knee-jerk reaction. I don't think we have to respond emotionally and just pass this stuff at the knee-jerk reaction and make something that's going to hurt us in the long run. But I believe these gun violence restraining orders and red flag laws, although it's not optimal when you talk about rights and right to ownership, and I believe that does need to be instituted. I think because again, a lot of these mass shooters, they did show some signs. There were things that they exhibited, and a lot of them were able to buy guns legally. So you can't even say more gun laws would help. It's silly to say that. I'm not for more gun laws. I'm for enforcing what's already there. The red flags law, I am good with that. Again, I catch a lot of heat for it, but we got to look at the lesser two evils here. If we're going to do anything to help save lives, we're going to have to kind of bite the bullet at some point.
We are talking with our guest, Eric Rittmeyer, who's a former U.S. Marine, and now he speaks to audiences all over the country, teaching executives and sales professionals how to overcome the limits brought on by fear, emotion, and replace them with clear, concise, critical thinking. We've been talking about the recent mass murders in El Paso and in Dayton. I'm Sharron Angle. I'm here with my co-host, Rick Trader, and we're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. We can also be seen on the AUN TV network in Northern California. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
And once again, we want to thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host is Sharron Engel. And if you'd like to be a guest or would like to recommend a guest here on Conservative Commandos, please send an email to me, Rick at conservativecommandosradioshow.com. I know it's long, but it's easy. It's just Rick at conservativecommandosradioshow.com. Our present guest has come to us via email, and Eric Rittmeyer. He's a former U.S. Marine and an expert in the field of mental toughness and emotional intelligence. Eric, we want to thank you for holding through that break. We really do appreciate your time.
Sure. Thank you.
Eric, U.S. Marine, mental toughness. Let's add physical toughness into that. Emotional intelligence. As you say, there is no one answer for this, but I always say that idle hands does the devil's work. Maybe, just maybe, some of these kids that are locked in their mother's basement on video games, kids that are attached to the screen, be it TV, be it computer, be it a personal device, go beyond just somebody potentially grabbing a gun or hurting people. Shouldn't this be a sign for parents that their child is not living a healthy life? Are they making the best kind of friends that way? Can you link this in?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, going back to the video games, for instance, even social media. I mean, there's a healthy way to be on social media. There's a healthy way to play video games. And let's be realistic here. 99% of people can play a video game and not have any thought of committing a mass crime or a mass murder. So, again, the video game in and of itself is not the issue. It's the lack of social interaction. So, again, to try to label somebody to say, who is going to do this? Where are we going to see this person? How can we find this person? It's a difficult thing because you can't say just because a child's playing video games all the time that they're automatically going to be susceptible to going out and committing mass murder. Because again, you have to understand, video games don't turn people into mass murderers. Watching television doesn't turn people into mass murderers. But what it does do is it does desensitize their brain. And when you desensitize your brain, especially to acts of violence, you view it differently. We all deal with it. I deal with it with my mental toughness training. When I was in the Marine Corps, that's how I got trained. We were systematically desensitized to whatever it was, whatever pain, whatever discomfort. We were put in that situation so often that eventually our brain just viewed it as a game at that point. We were desensitized to it. So seeing this violence is absolutely a contributing factor. The video games are a problem. As parents, we have to be more involved. And when it comes to boys especially, not having male interaction, that's an issue.
Eric, let's talk about gun control laws. Let's talk about gun-free zones. Let's talk about Chicago. Let's talk about Washington, D.C. Let's talk about Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, areas that have the strictest gun control laws in the country. And I just mentioned those three cities. I could mention 50 of them because that's where most of the gun violence takes place. And if you correlate gun laws with these large metropolitan cities where most gun violence take place, gun laws don't work. Just about every single mass shooting in this country, going back from the 1960s, and Sharron, I'll agree with you that it started when we took the Bible out of school, when we took the 10 Commandments out of school, and remember that little commandment, thou shalt not kill. We get the proliferation of these mass shootings. And with that, Eric, I need to take you to task a little bit about the red flag laws. In seeing that these other gun laws have not worked, they are not working, why a red flag law that specifically targets guns?
Because it's not specifically targeting guns, it's specifically targeting the mental illness. So if you have somebody that's exhibiting these acts that you know are precursors to mass violence, there should be a way, there needs to be a way that we have to disarm. If it is a matter of guns, they have to be disarmed. If we know that these 10 things are precursors leading up to a mass shooting, it is, I believe, our obligation to do everything we can to take those away. And again, I understand, I get the whole Second Amendment. I take a lot of heat for this, but somebody has to concede here. One side has to concede to say, we have to do something to try to protect. Now, you talked about the city things. I want to go to that real quick, because just to kind of confirm my theory here, you look at the biggest cities that have the biggest crime problems. Baltimore, for instance, I live in Baltimore. Baltimore has a major problem with crime, with homicides. Baltimore, 70% of households grow up without a father. Okay, so 70% of the families in Baltimore City do not have fathers. Again, I don't want to keep going back to that, but is it just random that one of the cities with the highest murder rates in the whole nation just so happened to have a very high fatherless rate? I don't know. So again, it's not a matter of any one solution, but again, these restraining orders, these gun violence restraining orders, red flag laws, I believe they do have to be implemented.
Well then, Eric, how do you protect people from not being abused by these red flag laws? For instance, how do you protect somebody from their neighbor because maybe your grass is a little bit too high? How do you protect a spouse from another spouse because they were out cheating, or maybe they weren't balancing the checkbook? Or you see what I'm getting at, Eric? There's too much room for abuse when you just blanket and say red flag, red flag. How do you protect how does somebody get their right to a day in court when in these red flag laws, as they're being written today, there is no day in court. There is no opportunity for you to challenge your accuser. And there's also no guarantee that you're going to get your rights back.
Because that's the issue, and that's why the law, the way it currently is and the way it's being proposed, is not the correct way it should be the way it should be drawn, which is why we need time and logical thought. To answer your question there, Rick, number one, if somebody's going to approach a court and say this person is unstable, there has to be an expedited process to get that person into court.
But there isn't. Just by saying that, as these laws are being proposed right now, the accusation in and of itself is a trigger, an automatic trigger for somebody to have their Second Amendment rights taken away from them.
But you're talking about the way it's currently proposed, and here's what I'm saying. In order to effectively have a red flag law, it needs to be you petition court because spouse looks like they're violent, whatever it is. You have an expedited day in court. This is not taken lightly. This is expedited in court. If you're found to not be able to have a weapon, and this is not just going to be a word, this is going to be a court process. If you're found to not be capable of having it, the weapon is taken away. You can come back, enter the court to get your weapon back after a certain specified period of time. On top of it, the way we help or the way we prevent this abuse is to be able to file charges against people who falsely accuse. So if your neighbor accuses you of being unstable because your grass is too tall, and you go to court and the judge finds that your grass is too tall, it's why you're here, now you're able to file charges against that person. Again, I am not saying there's any one clear-cut way that this needs to be. The way they're currently proposed, I agree with. There needs to be corrections there. But I think with the right tweaking, we can make that work and save lives.
Eric, I got to ask you this about political correctness. You know, I think political correctness has been an element in this, and what I mean by that is political correctness has kept some people from reporting potential violent crimes. For instance, the Santa Barbara shooting. The neighbor suspected something was going on here. Down in Florida, those school shootings. The other students and teachers that went to that school and worked at that school were afraid of these young men, but yet they were afraid to come forward because of political correctness. You know, Eric, I would maybe consider the red flag laws if you totally eliminate all other gun laws. But what happens with any law that started? It's just one step further in the eventual banning and confiscating weapons. And this is what upsets me about any time anyone proposes a new law. It's just one more step, just one more step, just one more step to the eventual elimination of our Second Amendment rights. Eric, I'll give you the last word on this.
I was going to push back on that, Rick, and ask you if we know that somebody's exhibiting factors that tell us that they could potentially be a harm. If we know somebody has these issues, what is the correction?
Then put him in a hospital.
Well, then it comes down to
put him in a hospital. So get them evaluated.
But how about that person's rights? We talk about Second Amendment rights, but how about somebody's rights as far as involuntarily?
Our rights to protect ourselves from violent people. Again, Santa Barbara, the police were 1 mile away. It took them 5 minutes to get there. In the meantime, 20 people were killed. That happened in a gun-free zone.
That's another contributing factor, which I totally agree with. The vast majority of the mass shooters, they say they deliberately go to places where they are gun-free zones. So I would agree with you. We need more guns. We need to arm teachers. People don't want to hear that. We have to arm people in school. Yeah, it's not the optimal way to go. I don't want my kid to be in a school with their guns, with a teacher or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'd rather them be armed than just sitting there like sitting ducks.
Eric Rittmeyer, we want to thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate the debate with you, Eric. I really do.
Likewise.
Please tell our audience how they could follow your work.
Absolutely. On Twitter, @mentalspeaker, and my website is mentaltoughnesspeaker.com.
Again, Eric, we appreciate you coming here. Take care. God bless.
Likewise. Thank you guys very much. Good seeing you.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. Returning guest Elad Hakim is going to be joining us to talk about the Dems are trying to play a, quote, game scheme with requests about McCann and the Mueller grand jury. Don't go away. We will be right back with our next guest.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
And once again, this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Angle. Yes, that's Sharron Angle. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our website, CCRShow.com. That's CCRShow.com. You'll find rebroadcasts of our TV show, our radio show, and a lot of great articles, a lot of terrific information. Sharron, our next guest is with us, and as you always do, please make him feel welcome.
Well, it's a real pleasure for me to introduce Elad Hakim, who is a political writer, commentator, and attorney. His articles have bbeen published in the Washington Examiner, the Daily Caller, the Federalist, the Algeminer, the Western Journal, American Thinker, and other online publications. Elad, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Well, you've written another great article. The Dems tried to game the system with requests about McGahn, Mueller grand jury. They lost. Okay, Elad, this thing just doesn't go away. I mean, this Russia thing, this Mueller thing, they just keep beating. Is this latest, talk about this. Who is McGahn and why is he, do they think he's an important player, or is this really grasping at straws now?
Yeah, they're looking to subpoena any, grasping at straws is the right way to put it. They are looking to tie McGahn's testimony to try to implicate President Trump. And the grand jury testimony, as you know, is relevant because it was not erased, but it was not included. It was redacted when Mueller issued his initial report. So the Democrats are looking to try to create some sort of obstruction or some sort of, I don't even want to say collusion anymore. I think the collusion narrative is out. But the obstruction of justice narrative, and they think that the grand jury testimony may help them towards that end. By the way, it doesn't seem that much information was actually redacted. From what I read, it might have been 10% of the entire report, so it's not that much. But in order to actually gain the grand jury testimony, they need to show, for example, that they are in the process of impeachment. And that's why you hear so much talk recently about, yes, we're in the process of impeachment, because if they can show that and if they convince a judge of that, then the judge may very well allow them to unseal the redacted part of the grand jury testimony.
Well, it seems like to me that there is a client-attorney privilege here. Isn't McGahn the White House counsel? So isn't he the president's attorney, and wouldn't that invade that client-attorney privilege?
Yeah, that's one argument. Of course, attorney-client privilege doesn't necessarily apply if there's a crime involved. So if there's a crime, that may be one way to kind of broach that particular privilege. But yeah, that's one of the arguments, that there's privileged communication and you're not entitled to it. But there's a lot. It's also the nature of grand jury testimony. It's supposed to be secretive so as to encourage people to come forward and to testify, and their names don't come out, for safety reasons or whatever it is. So there's a bunch of arguments as to why grand jury testimony is normally sealed or redacted. Yes, privilege is one of them. Safety is another. One other one is because, hey, and this dealt with the entire report, not only grand jury testimony, but the entire report. If you're not going to indict anyone, then you don't want to throw anyone to the wolves where their reputation and everyone will start attacking them, like it's happened to Trump now.
Well, and others. We have a good friend, J.D. Gordon, who was attacked just because of his close association with the president and these investigations. And we know of many others who have had their lives just completely turned upside down. And so it seems like the White House is definitely within its right to say, no, we're not going to throw any more of these guys your way. And there is no crime, is there, Elad?
So far, there hasn't been a crime. But keep in mind, this is, again, and I think we've talked about this before, there is a big difference between a crime for purposes of criminal law and a crime for purposes of impeachment. You don't necessarily have to show a crime for purposes of impeachment. If the House can convince itself that an impeachable offense occurred, they can move to pass articles of impeachment. They don't have to show that the president, they don't have to establish by proof beyond a reasonable doubt for purposes of impeachment. They just have to believe that some sort of crime occurred. But in this case, based on what's come out so far, they'll never convince the Senate. They'll never convince the Senate, and I'm not sure they'd convince the public. And one thing with impeachment is you better have the public's backing if you're going to move to impeach a president. And here, what is it? I don't know what the latest stats are, but they were, 40%, 50%? So it's not as if the country is overwhelmingly in support of impeachment.
Well, the law says high crimes and misdemeanors. That's impeachment. High crimes and misdemeanors. They haven't got a high crime. They haven't got a misdemeanor even. It doesn't seem like. Maybe you can correct me there if I'm wrong. And it looks like what they're doing is trying to build a case so that the public won't just hang them on this thing, because at any point they could go to impeachment if they want to on nothing, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I mean, they can, and that is one of the problems with impeachment, is that it's really up to the House as to what they want to do. So if they want to pass articles of impeachment, they can. Keep in mind that high crimes and misdemeanors is kind of a misnomer. It doesn't necessarily mean like what it sounds. It's not some high crime, like some significant crime, and it's not a misdemeanor. It's kind of been defined by way of case law, and it's not quite clear exactly what it means, but you do have to show some sort of dereliction of duty, that you used your position in office in some improper way. And here they're looking to hang their hat on the obstruction issue. But if you remember, even when Mueller was questioned during his testimony, initially he responded that yes, there was obstruction or whatever it was, and then he later on came and corrected himself and said, you know what, we never found anything to establish, we never determined that there was a crime committed by the president of any sort. So he actually came back during the second part of the testimony and corrected himself. So yeah, they're looking, but so far there's been nothing, and there's no way that the Senate is going to impeach and remove Trump, even if the House passed articles. There's no way.
Yeah, it's really a hard bar, and you're exactly right. But here's another little twist that you brought up in your article, and that's one of judge shopping. Talk a little bit about that.
Judge shopping is, it happens in the law a lot, and what happens is lawyers begin to familiarize themselves with how particular judges rule. Sadly, as we've seen, especially since Trump got in office, judges who are supposed to be neutral and simply apply the law are simply not doing it. And you can look at the Ninth Circuit as a perfect example of that. I mean, it's changing a little bit now because the president is doing his best to change judges there. But what lawyers do is that they look to file cases or keep cases in places where they think the judge will rule kind of in their favor or be more favorable to their position. And for that reason, they tried to judge shop in the grand jury case and the what was it? I'm in a mind blank now, but there were two cases where they tried to connect the two. They wanted the same judge, to rule on both of them, and the judge said no, they're separate. One deals with the application of criminal law, and one deals with the issue of a subpoena and whether you have to comply with a subpoena. So it's two different sets of laws, two different issues. And for that reason, the judge said, no way, I'm not gonna combine these two cases. So judge shopping is not unusual, but that's part of the reason why the law and the procedure is to have arbitrary assignments of judges, so that judges can't, or lawyers can't, select the cases that they want and put them in front of the judge that they want. There's an inherent bias there. I mean, if I could go ahead and put a judge that I think will favor me and take my case and put it there, wouldn't that be wonderful? But it's just not the way it happens.
We are talking with Elad Hakim, who is a political writer, commentator, and attorney, about Democrats trying to game the system with requests about McCann-Mueller grand jury. We are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch us on the AUN TV network in Northern California. I'm Sharron Engel, and my co-host is Rick Trader, and we'll be right back after these messages.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Elad, in the second part here, we're going to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk with you about your other article, 2 potential strikes against the Second Amendment. Okay?
Okay.
Once again, we want to thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Engel. And our guest this segment is Elad Hakim. He's a political writer, commentator, and attorney. But his greatest claim to fame, he's a Facebook friend of mine. I'm just kidding about that. But Elad, thank you for holding through that break. We really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Elad, I always love getting your articles. You email them directly to me. Another article you have written and put out recently is 2 potential strikes against the Second Amendment. A lot in this article, the first strike you talk about are these red flag laws, which I find very dangerous. Very dangerous in as much as that gun laws don't work. I don't know a single case necessarily where gun laws have worked. Certainly gun-free zones don't work. Certainly gun laws don't work. And as Sharron and I were talking with our last guest, if they work, you wouldn't have gun crime in places like Chicago or Baltimore or Philadelphia or Cleveland or Los Angeles. They have some of the most strict gun control laws in the country. Now there's calls for another set of gun laws. Is red flag laws. Talk to us about them.
I think some states already have red flag laws or something similar to it. Florida does. And basically what it is, like I said in my article, I think that you have to differentiate between the purpose behind a law and the implementation, or how it can actually be enforced. Red flag laws basically allow the government, or the police, to confiscate guns merely if someone is deemed to be a danger to himself or others. And just by listening to that, people can see the potential dangers or abuse, possibility of abuse there. You can have a spouse who wants to get revenge on someone. You can have circumstances where somebody says something in jest, and it really is just something that's not serious in any nature, and a complaint is filed. And the process, the problem, one of the problems is it doesn't necessarily afford the gun owner the due process, because once the complaint is filed, the law enforcement can confiscate the weapons, and all weapons, by the way. And I think you have to wait 14 days or 30 days, whatever it is, depending on the state, until you can even have your side heard by a court. So as you can imagine, it can create kind of this trickle down, this effect where it slowly begins to erode your right to their Second Amendment rights, because and we all know that due process, you have a right to be heard, and at least you should. And this, again, the purpose is, I think everyone supports. I think that if someone is truly a danger, and if somehow we could figure that out without infringing on their Second Amendment rights, I think that would be great. But the problem here is that it takes things a little too far, at least the way these laws are phrased now, because they allow for confiscation without any sort of due process on most occasions. And that's a problem.
Elad, one of the things you said, and I don't think you meant it literally, you said they can take all weapons away from these people. Well, this only applies to guns, right? It doesn't apply to machetes. It doesn't apply to steak knives. It doesn't apply to bow and arrow. It doesn't apply to slingshots. You get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. This is very selective. It's very selective in what they want to take away. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but like I was, like we were talking with our last guest about this article, I think that this is just a formula for abuse. You mentioned relatives. I'll use the example of a neighbor. A neighbor gets mad at you because your dog came on their property and dug a hole, or maybe urinated on their ground or whatever. And once, as you said, you're not going to get a hearing for 14 days. Now, another potential problem here, Elad, I think this becomes public record. And then wouldn't you get a stigma in your community? Oh, this guy's a nut. They took his guns away. So I think and not only that, once it becomes a record, and we could play all kinds of games with these things and say potentially criminals will see who's had their guns taken away, and then they become easy targets for crime. Am I thinking too far outside the box here?
No, I mean, listen, it would depend on how, a lot of this depends on the specific language that's used in any sort of red flag law. So if there are specific terms that help protect gun owners so that these types of your concerns that you raise and that I raise are addressed and adequately, accounted for, that's one thing. But no, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's circular in nature. That's the problem. You have too many guns, so you take them away, and then what happens? People who really want to get guns are going to get them anyway, and then the people who want to legally defend themselves and are responsible gun owners can't defend themselves. So it's a circular type argument. But yeah, listen, it's a real problem. That's why people didn't agree with the president on this one, because he
I
came
don't
out.
agree with them.
Came out
I
after
supported this president from day one. Actually, From day one, I've supported this president. Ever since he became the nominee, I became a staunch supporter of this president, and so has Sharron. But, not everybody's right on everything, and I think that he is very, very wrong here. Very, very wrong here. Elad, we got to talk about this other case, this Remington case. A lot of people probably haven't heard about this. Can you explain this situation to our audience?
Basically, Remington is a gun manufacturer, and there's a case that came up because there is a law that protects gun manufacturers from being liable or responsible when someone is hurt or injured by use of one of their weapons. And I think it was called, let me take a look here for a minute, the Protection of Lawful and Commerce and Arms Act. So it immunized gun manufacturers that could be brought as a result of crimes committed with the firearms. There are some exceptions to this law, and one of the exceptions deals with when a manufacturer violates a state statute, for example. And in this case, the state of Connecticut said that Remington violated the state statute dealing with how it advertised the gun. And some of the phrases that they used, for example, was waging war and killing human beings. It advertised the XM15 and E2S as a weapon that allows a single individual to force multiple opponents to bow down, et cetera, et cetera. So the court found that particular type of language violated the statute insofar as the way it was advertised. Therefore, it fit into one of the exceptions of the law, and Remington could therefore be sued. And Remington turned around and said, there's this law in place. The law is meant to protect gun owners and or gun manufacturers, and because of this law, we don't fit into this exception. There was nothing wrong with the way we advertised, and we should be protected. And if you think about the ramifications of a potential ruling on this, if the Supreme Court turns around and says, no, Remington, you are responsible, gun manufacturers, they're going to stop producing guns. I mean, think about, first of all, they're going to have to defend themselves everywhere, because think about the number of lawsuits that are going to take place with injuries or deaths that occur from shooting, and they're going to eventually stop producing guns because they're not going to be able to afford it. If a gun is so much of a liability, then why are they going to produce it? So, in essence, that's going to impact the Second Amendment rights. You can't exercise Second Amendment rights if there's no guns. So it's an issue. I mean, it's a real problem. Looking at these two things together, the red flag and the Remington case, that's exactly why I kind of referred to it as two potential strikes. These are two issues that could really limit the Second Amendment rights that people enjoy.
Elad, what about when those state statutes violate our constitutional statutes, the Second Amendment? On what side of the law, on what side of that scale is weighted?
Well, normally the constitutional issue would prevail. So long as it's not a specific state question. So if it violates the Constitution, then typically the constitutional issue would take, precedent over the state issue. It's a difficult question and a difficult issue. I recently asked a friend of mine. I said, "Listen, what are people supposed to do? How can Congress come up with an agreement where they avoid or help to limit the number of mass shootings, yet they maintain the integrity and the purpose and the rights under the Second Amendment?"
But Elad, don't you, I hear you, and I love you, my friend, but the problem is, come to an agreement, because the left and right see agreements differently. Okay? The right sees as an agreement, okay, we're going to settle on this, and this is the way it's going to be. But the left sees the agreement as just one step closer to ultimately what we want. And ultimately what we want is the total banning and confiscation of firearms, the total elimination of our Second Amendment rights. And that's my problem with any gun control law, be it a gun-free zone or be it these red flag laws. It's not an agreement. It's not an understanding. It's not a settlement to the left. It's just one step closer to what they want.
But the left, for example, is proposing more significant or more stringent background checks. So as a gun advocate, and as someone who supports the Second Amendment, what would your argument against that be? Is there anything wrong?
Well, yeah, I'll take this step in saying somebody is
wrong with the machine gun, like the military-style machine guns or ARs being kind of make it more difficult or banning them. I'm playing devil's advocate to you. How would you respond to them? Because their points are some of these things aren't needed.
Well, my argument is criminals, need to be locked up. People with mental problems need to be in a hospital. They need to get treatment. But just to say because there's 1 out of a million or let's say 1 out of a million people that would take a weapon and kill others, should that remove the rights from the other 999,000 to possess something? I would rather see government find and go after these potential killers. And there have been warnings, Elad. In Santa Barbara, there was a warning that the perpetrators of that shooting in Santa Barbara were up to no good. In Florida, those kids down there, the teachers and their fellow students know that these kids were up to trouble, that they were up to no good. Columbine, same thing. Sandy Hook, same thing. All these cases, or I won't say all, but I'll say probably most of these cases, there were warnings that these people were troubled. You get those people off the street. Somebody commits a crime in Chicago, instead of giving a slap on the wrist and putting them out to commit crimes against the rest of us, you put them in jail for so long, when they get out, they're too old to commit a crime. Okay? These people that are coming across our borders illegally and committing crimes, you get them out of our country and you keep them out of our country. There's no I don't see any one solution, but I don't see where limiting or ending the rights for the vast majority because of the actions of very few is a solution.
Well, listen, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. It's an incredibly difficult issue because I'm not sure that there's really any, it troubles me to say it, but I'm not sure if you can stop short of
you can't
background.
You can't, but you can't stop every one of these cases, but Elad, what you can do is you can allow the rest of us to protect ourselves from those few. Elad Hakim, before I let you go, I got to ask you about this Remington case. When do you think there'll be a settlement?
I don't know because the court hasn't even agreed to take it up yet. So we have to see if the court takes it, and if the court takes it, then it'll be some time. So it's to be determined. The court hasn't agreed to hear it yet.
Elad Hakim, we always appreciate you having you on here on Conservative Commandos. Please tell our audience how they could follow your work and read your articles.
They can listen to your show. They can find me at Thoughtful GOP on Twitter and on Facebook at Thoughtfully Conservative. So feel free to jump into the discussion.
Elad Hakim, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you, buddy. Take care and God bless.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We'll be back with more right after this break.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Well, once again, Sharron, that just about wraps it up for today. My gosh, I enjoyed doing the show with you, and I always appreciate our guests and what they bring to the table. Sharron, where can our listeners and viewers keep track of you when you're not here with me on Conservative Commandos?
Well, it's always a pleasure to be here with you on Conservative Commandos. And when I'm not here, they can follow me at SharonEngle.com. I'm on Facebook as well and Twitter. I don't do too much posting. There are obvious reasons for that. But certainly I have a very active Twitter and Facebook feed, and they're welcome to post. And sometimes I do answer, but if I don't, just be reassured that it's only because we try to keep ourselves in a place where we always have access. And of course, we always have access on the website, SharonEngle.com. And speaking of access, we have access to such great guests. We want to thank Terry Jeffrey, who is the editor-in-chief at CNS News, for coming on to talk to us today about China's high-tech tyranny. Many of us get crazy when we think about this coming to a country near us.
Yes.
And our second guest that we want to thank is Eric Rittmeyer, a former U.S. Marine, and he's also teaches mental toughness. And we asked him to get mentally tough with us over the mass murders that have happened in Dayton and El Paso. So that was good to get Eric's take on what the commonalities are when it comes to these mass murders. And finally, we'd like to thank our guest, Elad Hakim, who is a political writer, commentator, and attorney, for talking to us about a couple of things. The first one was this idea of the McGahn wanting to be part of that Mueller grand jury investigation, and how he's refusing, but the Dems are pushing. And the second, of course, was the red flag laws, and we got our co-host Rick Trader revved up again on this issue.
Not hard to do sometimes.
We had a great show. Thanks a lot, Rick.
All right, indeed we did. But for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Donald Trump is moving up in the polls as he attacks Representatives Omar and Tlaib, the first Muslim congressman in the U.S. Congress. You know, when you look at the amount of publicity that's been given to these two women, it really drives you crazy. But that publicity is really helping Donald Trump because they are becoming the face of the Democratic Party. Normally, two Democratic congressmen from the Midwest wouldn't get anybody excited. They're not running for president or even for Senate. They're not in leadership positions. But because Trump is firing at them every day, and they're shooting back, and Israel's joining the crossfire, they become very big. They become a very big deal. Their name recognition soars. And everybody in the country learns that these two crazy anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian, anti-Semitic women are now in the United States Congress courtesy of the Democratic Party. And that does not do a very good job of cementing Jewish loyalty or mainstream American loyalty to the Democratic Party. So Trump keeps picking on that sore, and the more he does, the more effective it is. His ratings have gone up, and people are identifying with him. In the meantime, the Democrats have this classical dilemma. If they don't rush to the defense of these two congressmen, everybody will say they're Islamic phobic and they're joining the tide of racism and all of that garbage. So they do rally to their defense. And when they do that, they make them the face of the Democratic Party.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Following Israel's rejection of Ilhan Omar's and Rashida Tlaib's travel request, Tlaib upped the ante by using her own grandmother as a pawn. A leaked recording of a New York Times town hall meeting reveals the company's true agenda, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has apparently figured out exactly what makes Trump supporters tick. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show, and what a weekend. We got a lot to cover, so let's just dive in. On Friday, we covered this whole story about Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib being rejected for going into Israel on a trip that they wanted to do. But since we did that story, there was so much that went on later Friday and over the weekend, and I just wanted to bring you up to speed. So remember, what we covered before was Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. They wanted to go to Israel. They were sponsored by a group that has been denounced by Israel. So the foreign ministry, the government, denied their request. They said they couldn't come in, and Ilhan Omar took to Twitter and said this. She said, "It is an affront that the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, under pressure from President Trump, would deny entry to representatives of the U.S. government." All right, so that's Omar. And then Tlaib jumped in with some of her own. She said this, "This woman right here is my city. She deserves to live in peace and with human dignity. I am who I am because of her. the decision by Israel to bar her granddaughter, a U.S. congresswoman, is a sign of weakness because the truth of what is happening to Palestinians is frightening. All right, so after that, and we went into some of this, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu put out a series of tweets just blasting them for their affiliations, for what they've done in the past. But he also put in this key point of information right here. He says, nonetheless, if Congresswoman Tlaib submits a humanitarian request to visit her relatives, the Minister of Interior has announced that he will consider her request on the condition that she pledges not to act to promote the boycotts against Israel during her visit. All right, so Tlaib said she wanted to visit her grandmother, and the Israeli government said, put in that request for a humanitarian trip, and you can do it, okay? So guess what? She put in that request, and here's what she wrote. She said, I would like to request admittance to Israel in order to visit my relatives, and specifically my grandmother, who is in her 90s and lives in Bet Ur al-Faqwa. This could be my last opportunity to see her. I will respect any restrictions and will not promote boycotts against Israel during my visit. Okay, so the Israeli government got that letter, talked about how her grandmother's in her 90s, may be her last opportunity, so they granted the request. They said she could do it. But does she do the trip? No. Instead, she uses that as another opportunity to get in front of the media and push her anti-Israel comments. And here's what she tweeted. She says, when I won, it gave the Palestinian people hope that someone will finally speak the truth about the inhumane conditions. I can't allow the state of Israel to take away that light by humiliating me and use my love for my city to bow down to their oppressive and racist policies. Okay, so that was one. And then she added another one. She said, silencing me and treating me like a criminal is not what she wants from me. It would kill a piece of me. I have decided that visiting my grandmother under these oppressive conditions stands against everything I believe in, fighting against racism, oppression, and injustice. Okay, so much for possibly the last opportunity to see her grandmother, which is what she stated in her official letter. It sounds to me like she was using that as an excuse to get to the trip, and so she could draw attention against Israel and promote herself. Because right now, I guess her grandmother's not that important to actually take the trip. She'd rather get sound bites in the media blasting Israel and things like that than actually do the trip. So Trump jumped in classic President Trump fashion, and he tweeted this. He says, Representative Tlaib wrote a letter to Israeli officials desperately wanting to visit her grandmother. Permission was quickly granted, whereupon Tlaib obnoxiously turned the approval down, a complete setup. The only real winner here is Tlaib's grandmother. She doesn't have to see her now. So that was accurate. That was awesome because, again, this is just her grandmother was used as a pawn in order for her to get there so she could draw attention to whatever she wants to do, anti-Israel, pro-Tlaib, and it's all about her. It certainly wasn't about her grandmother. But that wasn't all Trump had to say this weekend, because some very interesting information came out over the course of late last week, and it really got Trump's attention over the weekend, and that is regarding the New York Times. And here's what he tweeted. He says, the failing New York Times is one of the most devastating portrayals of bad journalism in history, got caught by a leaker that they are now shifting from their phony Russian collusion narrative, the Mueller report and his testimony were a total disaster, to a racism witch hunt. All right. So basically some information leaked out about a New York Times town hall meeting. We'll get more into that, where they discussed Trump's strategy. And President Trump added this to his tweets as well. He says, journalism has reached a new low in the history of our country. It is nothing more than an evil propaganda machine for the Democrat Party. The reporting is also false, biased, and evil that has now become a very sick joke. But the public is aware. #crooked journalism. So what's this all about? Like I mentioned, the New York Times got together a town hall with some executives, reporters, things like that. It was recorded, and that was leaked to Slate magazine, which put out a transcript of it. And it's amazing when you read it, because it just shows, one, their fixation on racism, even outside of President Trump, is just, it's insane. It's intense. And basically everything that they are focused on is racism. I mean, the whole one reporter, it really stood out to me. She asked a question of the leadership of the editor saying, how are we supposed to basically frame our stories knowing that the country was, built on racism, and should we use that as our foundation? I mean, give me a break. This shows how far journalism has gone from a professional level endeavor to one of just left-wing advocacy. It's nuts. But here's a report from the Washington Times. It says, conservatives were stunned by the transcript of the staff town hall led by Executive Director Dean Beckett, a recording of which was reportedly leaked to Slate, which posted what was described as a transcript. This is a smoking gun. It shows the most powerful news organization in the country congratulating itself for setting the anti-Trump narrative on Russia collusion and seamlessly transitioning to setting a narrative of Trump as racist after collusion flopped, said legal insurrection's William A. Jacobson, a Cornell Law School professor. So then Senator Cruz added some of his comments too. He tweeted this. He says, there was a time when journalists covered news. The New York Times has given up on even pretending anymore. Today they are Pravda, a propaganda outlet by liberals, for liberals. These remarks at their own town hall are a scandal and would be a firing offense at any real journalistic outlook. Okay. And again, I read through this and it's just nuts. Their fixation on Trump, their fixation on race, and they want to bring it all together. I mean, America is one of the most welcoming, non-racist countries in the entire world, yet the left chooses that to demonize and attack its political opponents. And it's just nuts. And that's the New York Times. So my question is, or President Trump's question over the weekend was, is this leaking over to Fox News as well? He was asked about Fox News, and he had some very interesting comments regarding them over the weekend. Take a look.
I'll tell you, Fox is a lot different than it used to be, I can tell you that. Juan Williams, then they have the wonderful woman that gave Hillary Clinton the questions. That was a terrible thing. And all of a sudden, she's working for Fox.
So, of course, President Trump was talking about Donna Brazile, who used to head the Democrat National Committee, was a Clinton advisor for a long time, and was caught feeding debate questions to Hillary Clinton when she was running for president in preparation for the CNN debate. This is what happened. And apparently Fox News thought it was a good idea to hire her. And here's more from President Trump.
Fox has changed, and my worst polls have always been from Fox. There's something going on at Fox, I'll tell you right now, and I'm not happy with it.
So my question to you is, does President Trump have a point? I mean, they've got Juan Williams, they've got Shepard Smith, they've got Chris Wallace, and I mean, Donna Brazile, what does she bring to the table? In what meeting did they say, we need her to help the ratings? This is a must hire. I don't get that. I don't see that meeting. It just doesn't make sense. And yet she's, one of the cast now. And again, President Trump brings up some interesting points, but I want to know what you think. I mean, do you think that President Trump is right? Do you think he has to worry about Fox News? Are they being infiltrated by the left now too? It's just really interesting. And finally, I want to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because she gave an interview late last week that it just really, in her mind, sums up Trump supporters. And it's going to be no surprise to it wasn't a surprise to me. It won't be a surprise to you, but it's just absolutely outrageous that she will just say this stuff in public and think that it's okay. So she was asked about Trump supporters, and here was what she said.
Trump relied on a coalition, and a core part of that coalition were racists.
Yeah.
Building a coalition with all sorts of other people that could be susceptible to racist views if they were blanketed and layered and made people feel good about it not being a racist thing.
All right, she talks about a core part of Trump's coalition are racist. That's what she says. That's how she got elected. And another core part of this coalition is those who are susceptible to racism. So, I mean, what does that even mean? Well, she goes along and explains it.
And so there are a lot of people who support Trump that genuinely don't believe that they are racist, because we do not talk about or educate people on recognizing racism.
So there you go. You either support President Trump because you're a racist, or you support President Trump because you don't realize you're a racist and you haven't been educated yet. So, in other words, she thinks that Trump supporters basically fall into two groups, racist and stupid. Those are the two, and she just flat out says it right there in her interview. And the left and the Democrats talk about tolerance and inclusiveness, and they're labeling a person who got millions and millions and millions of votes, 60 plus something million, as either racist or stupid. I mean, you might as well put that in the deplorables group like Hillary Clinton did, but this is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is what she's saying, and she's not alone with this. Beto O'Rourke over this weekend said that America is a racist nation built on a foundation of racism. And again, so when you hear that, when you hear Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when you hear what came out of the New York Times meeting, it really shows you that the left, if anything, they are coordinated, they are focused, and they are always on message. That's the thing. They are always on message. Now it's racism. And from the New York Times to Beto to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to anyone in the media, any presidential candidate, they're all singing the same tune, reading from the same playbook. And it's just absolutely nuts when you see example after example after example. But there it is. I mean, there was even more we could have packed into today's show that shows this agenda. But I just wanted to leave you with that. Let me know what you think in the comments on President Trump and Fox News and this whole fiasco with Rashida Tlaib and using her grandmother. I mean, this could be her last opportunity to see her. And yet she says, no thanks. I'll score political points. I'll get media hits instead. It's just absolutely nuts. Folks, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. And when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified. And we'll see you next time. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is a 13-minute news hour. Okay, friends, just a little reminder before you go, and no, this does not count against my 13 minutes. Please hit the subscribe button below and tell your friends. And if you happen to miss our last show, you can check it out right here. And also for great conservative news and commentary, please check out GOPUSA.com. All right, folks, we'll see you on the next show. Have a great day.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
I'm Jeff Crouere. Thanks for watching the Jeff Crouere YouTube channel. We've had tragedy strike America, mass shootings in recent days. In El Paso, 22 innocent people killed. In Dayton, 9 innocent people killed. In California, 4 innocent people killed. Different people involved in different types of crimes. In El Paso, it was someone who came all the way from Dallas, Texas, motivated by racist hate. Someone that was not affiliated with Donald Trump, not someone that was radicalized by Donald Trump, that had been radicalized prior to Donald Trump, and someone who had some different views than Donald Trump on a number of issues, certainly not a Trump supporter. In Dayton, the individual was someone who was a leftist, a Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren supporter, an Antifa member. He even killed his own sister. And then in California, you have someone going on a knife attack, using a totally different weapon to kill 4 people. In light of all this, you've had Democrats rushing to the forefront to say, we've got to ban certain types of guns. We've got to institute something called red flag laws, where certain people have their guns taken away. We've got to have more comprehensive background checks. As you can see in the California attack, it doesn't take a gun for a madman to go on a killing spree. In Europe, we've seen people use trucks and cars actually to kill a large number of people. Knife attacks in Europe are commonplace. We've had other types of weapons used. You can't ban certain types of weapons to try to stop these things. The madmen will use whatever they can. It is the insanity that is the problem. It is the terrorism that is the problem. It's the individual committing the crime that is the problem, not the instrument used. Guns can be used every day to save lives. In fact, they are. In Dayton, you had police rushing to the scene 30 seconds after the individual started shooting, and they saved lives with quick action. Every day, homeowners, people around the country use guns to protect their property, to ward off felons, criminals trying to do them harm, trying to do their family harm. So this rush for gun control is the wrong way to respond to this. We need to look at what the underlying causes are, the breakdown of the family, lack of mental health resources. As a country, we need to come together and come up with some solutions to deal with these issues, but banning our Second Amendment rights, going after the right to bear arms is certainly the worst thing we can do, because that Second Amendment protects our First Amendment and helps keep this country free. I'm Jeff Crouere. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe where you can be notified about upcoming videos like our next one, all about the Democrats. They're unhinged. They're doxing people. Unbelievable what they're doing in this lead up to the 2020 election.